Welcome to lesson 4, looking at this time the rival claimants to the throne in 1066, and we've got 3 key questions. Who claimed the throne of England in January 1066? How did Harold become king and what did he do? And what happened at the battles of Fulford and Stamford Bridge? So write down as you're heading the rival claimants to the throne in 1066. Okay, to start us off, these are the 4 men who claimed the throne in 1066, and your job here is to match the claim, the strength of the claim and their chance of success to the correct man. So these are all in different, in the wrong places. Can you match them up? Can you make them true? So for example, Harold Godwinson was not a royal prince related to Edward through royalty. So that's in the wrong place. You need to match it to the right one. So pause the video and have a go at drawing your own version of this table, making sure that you match up correctly the statements to the man. If you need some help, you can watch the first one of the links to the BBC Teach video, or otherwise use page 26 and 27 in the textbook to help you work these out. So pause the video and have a go at copying that out. These are the answers, so check now that you have got that correct. Check that you've got it correct in your book. Okay, so Harold, we've just seen, had a good claim to the throne, that Edward had promised it to him on his deathbed, but how practically did he become king? Well, we remember that the Witan, the group of advisors to the king, had a role in choosing the new king. This image is of the Witan with Edward the Confessor at the centre, but he's now dead, so they need to choose who should become king next. The Witan didn't like Normans. They'd stopped Edward bringing more Normans over during his reign, so it was very unlikely that they would have chosen William. So why did they choose Harold? Well, first of all, he was a strong military leader. We've seen that already in the work that we've done. And also he was ready to become king, and ready particularly to defend England against an invasion from William and potentially Tostig. Remember who there was the rebellion against that we looked at last time. So for those reasons, Harold is crowned. You can see him there sitting on the throne in this palace on the 6th of January, the day of Edward's funeral. And you can see Archbishop Stigand standing at the side with his hands open, sort of praying a blessing on the new king. So what did King Harold do once he had been crowned? You can see the map in the centre here is Anglo-Saxon England, and we're going to look at 2 main things that Harold does as soon as he's king. The first thing is that he travelled north from London up to York, and he did that to make sure that there wasn't going to be a rebellion against his reign, and to communicate with the people up in York to show them that he was king and to keep them happy. That's why you can see that picture there, keep calm and be happy. He couldn't risk a rebellion in the north. He knew that William was likely to invade in the south at some point, and he didn't want to have to fight on 2 fronts, fight in the north and in the south. So he needed to keep the people in York happy. So he goes up there to make sure that they accept him as king, which they do. He then travels back down to the south, and in the early summer, he raises the Fyrd. Now we know that this means the Anglo-Saxon army and the fleet, and you can see them there. The army were stationed on the south coast, and the fleet were in the channel. So the boats were there ready to defend against an invasion from Normandy in the south, where William would be coming from. So we know that these men can only serve for 40 days, and so he calls them up in May, about this time of year, and then he sort of can rotate through the men in Wessex, in his home earldom, to keep an army and the fleet ready there for those months from May to September. Okay, just checking then. Can you complete these sentences based on what we have done so far this lesson? So pause the video and complete the sentences. If you need to go back through the video to check the right answers, then please do so. Make sure you complete all of these sentences before you move on. Okay, we're going to look at the battles of Great Fulford and Stamford Bridge. And for both of these, the task is to do a storyboard. You can add some words at the bottom like a cartoon, but making a storyboard of 6 key events and add some detail. If you're doing this on a computer, you might want to do like I've done and take images from the video and add some detail in there, or you can do it in your book. If you can't access the video, then you can look at page 29 in the textbook. So watch the video and draw your storyboard. Use the heading, what happened at Fulford? And then same task again, what happened at Stamford Bridge? The information from the textbook is on page 30, or you can watch the video, draw a storyboard and add some detail. Okay, the last main thing to think about is the significance of the battles, the importance of the battles. So let's look at this first of all. One argument is that these 2 battles, the Battle of Fulford and Stamford Bridge, really made a difference to events that happened afterwards, particularly the Battle of Hastings. For example, we can say that they made a massive difference because these battles meant that Harold was in the north when William invaded. It also meant that many Saxons had died, so there weren't so many people there to fight William when he came. Maybe it also made Harold overconfident. He'd just won a battle, so maybe he was overconfident when he was going to fight William. Edwin and Morcar, who we know fought in the north, didn't fight at Hastings, so maybe that was a big weakness for Harold at Hastings when he was fighting William. And also perhaps Harold's housecarls, who remember would have travelled with him to the north and come back to the south, would have been tired from those journeys. So all of this makes it look like these battles were very, very significant in meaning that Harold lost to William later on when they had the battle in October. But there are other ways that you could argue that perhaps these battles were not so significant. It didn't make such a big difference to what happened at Hastings later. So yes, Harold was away in the north, but the army and the ships had already gone home in September. They weren't there when William invaded anyway, so whether Harold had been there or not wouldn't have made much difference. Lots of Saxons died, but those Saxons who died wouldn't have travelled down to the south anyway. They were different people that the local feared. Maybe Harold was overconfident, but actually you could argue that he was well prepared. And when he fought William, remember, he's down at home in Wessex, in his own earldom, so he was more likely to win. We actually don't know whether Edwin and Morcar were there at Hastings. We know that they're not mentioned by the sources, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't there. Perhaps they were, and that isn't such a big deal for William's victory in the end. And lastly, perhaps the housecarls would have been tired, but you could argue that maybe they would have been really pumped up, having just experienced winning a big battle, and their morale would have been really high, and perhaps that would have helped them at Hastings. So the blue boxes are arguing that these battles made it much harder for Harold when it came to fighting William a couple of weeks later, but the green boxes argue that in fact it didn't make much difference to Harold, that these reasons were not really big reasons why Harold lost to William. Okay, so now we've looked at that, what I'd like you to do is write a peel paragraph. You can either write one arguing that the battles made a big difference to later events, or that they made little difference. And remember, this means hardly any, not really worth talking about. So if you're going to write the first one, you'll need to use the blue ones, the blue boxes, about why they made a big difference. Or if you want to write the second one, you can use the green boxes for why actually they didn't make much difference to later events. Try to use more than one reason in your more than one example in your second sentence, and make sure that you are explaining clearly in your third sentence. So pause the video and write at least one paragraph explaining the significance of the battles. Okay, just checking then. With this, a list of things, facts is going to come up, and you need to decide whether they are to do with the Battle of Fulford or the Battle of Stamford Bridge. what I'd like you to do is draw a quick table in your book with those as your headings, and then as each of these statements come up, you can put them on the correct side in the correct column. Okay, put those in the correct columns. Are they to do with the Battle of Fulford or to do with the Battle of Stamford Bridge? Once you've finished, you can check your answers on the next slide. Well done for completing the lesson. That's the end of lesson 4.